make you a host.
Hey, Dean. Hey, Matt. Morning.
Good morning.
You're all set.
Awesome. Looks like I'm showing that Manny might be the host now. Little update in my window, but just a heads up on the Zoom side. So I think talking about the subscriber synchronization issues that we were seeing last week, just as kind of a refresher, we had built an automation to use ETL to identify records that were either opted in CRM but not eligible in our all subscribers table, or vice versa. They were opted in our Marketing Cloud instance, but they were not eligible in our CRM system. So we built some ETL to kind of identify those mismatched records and update the other system appropriately, depending on which direction that we wanted our contacts to be flowing. We had some issues last week trying to update our lead. We built a custom activity in Journey Builder, or not a true custom activity, but we were using the update object activity within the Journey Builder canvas to kind of check that has opted out of email box or clear it as appropriately on the CRM side. We were getting that error message that said, a required field needed to be specified, and we were having trouble identifying exactly what that was. So what I ended up doing was, I think Robert Winter and Monica Shaw both kind of suggested that maybe there were some required fields on the CRM side. I think we had kind of shied away from that because we were just updating a record. We weren't creating a record, so any of the standard required fields shouldn't have been at play there. The record already existed. But it turns out there was some validation on the CRM record side. We kind of identified that by going into the CRM and just trying to change it manually. And sure enough, on the CRM side, we got a pretty specific error saying that we needed to have, I think it was a particular lead source needed to be selected, as well as a particular product associated with the lead. So that validation was causing the update to fail on the CRM side. And then when that message was being passed into Journey Builder, it just wasn't very specific on the Marketing Cloud side. So definitely a little bit of a gremlin to kind of sort that out. But Tim was able to get in there, set some custom values for that lead record. And at that point, we were able to run the automation without issue. So apologies for kind of rectifying that off screen. I know that's never very satisfying when you just get the answer afterwards, but that was what was going on. So any questions on that before we kind of pivot over into some email specialist content? Cool. All right. Well, what I will do is just share my screen here and we will take it away. Awesome. So we should have a nice big presentation screen up. Just going to grab another window on my side. Awesome. All right. So I think we kind of teased this last week. What we're hoping to do is to cover some email specialist certification content. This is not meant to be a traditional boot camp where we're going to go through things and kind of have study sessions and cram and things like that. I think what we're hoping to do is really keep that hands-on feel that we have to our sessions. I think that's super valuable. I think I know I was really grateful to Tim for kind of opening up, an instance to allow people for hands-on training, knowing that you can't really get that in the Trailhead environment. So we really want to keep focusing on allowing people to kind of, build things and really learn through getting that hands-on practice. So our goal here is really just to kind of cover some content that aligns with that exam. So if you are looking to get that certification, you can kind of get some exposure there. We'll cover some best practices and kind of walk through that. And then we'll try to put them into practice by building some of the examples that we're going to talk about. And then I think we should have some resources as well. I've tried to kind of, link out to things where available out of the community. That way, if you want to go get some more, deeper study in, if you're looking to get that certification, that stuff's kind of at your fingertips. Just to go over some of our upcoming sessions here. I think some of these, looks like I've got a couple in the past, excuse me. So we did have an in-person meeting scheduled for this Wednesday that has been moved. So that is going to happen. I think April 9th is the Wednesday that we've got that for. So we're about 2 weeks out on that. So, definitely please join us if you're in the Boston area. If not, I think we do have a virtual component as well. So you may be able to join us. I know we've done that in the past. We've got a session this Friday with the Global Bootcamp Group. They're doing a series on Automation Studio deep dives, and I'm going to be presenting on just kind of foundational Automation Studio solutions. This is really kind of targeted at things that I think every account should have. I think it's things that I found super helpful throughout my career in Marketing Cloud. I've kind of bounced back and forth in between being, kind of the only person in an organization working in Marketing Cloud and being part of a larger team, a dozen people working in Marketing Cloud. So these are automations that I find just really helpful to kind of, keep the train on the tracks, maybe throw some errors. I think one thing that I've been doing is, especially around deliverability, if you don't have a hands-on person monitoring that, how do you kind of build some tools to help you understand where there may be a little bit of smoke? We've also got a deep dive coming up in early April as well. Again, a joint meeting with that Global Bootcamp Group. And then down below, we've got our hands-on sessions laid out for the next couple of weeks. We may tweak this a little bit. I think, Tim had a great suggestion I did over the weekend. I'm not sure who has been going to the Global Group's Marketing Cloud on Core series, but I know I have found that very informative for sure. And I think just from kind of going through those meetings and seeing how other people are kind of asking questions about it, it seems like there's a kind of a thirst for a lot more knowledge out there around that topic. So I think Tim and I are hoping to kind of explore that a little bit and, maybe get some sessions going around that as well. But right now for our email aligned series, we're going to be talking about email assets and A/B testing today as part of our larger, just kind of best practices discussion. And then in the future, we're looking at getting into, how do we templatize things, maybe do some dynamic content, send configurations, how do you build a sender profile if maybe you want to do some sends from maybe a sales representative or, an admissions counselor, or depending on what your use case is, there's lots of options there. Folder structures, I think, are super important. I know it's not very flashy, it's not very exciting, but I think in my time, the organizations I've been a part of that had a nice folder structure, regardless of what it was, made everybody's lives easier, especially when it comes to production. So I think we'll talk about that a little bit and what some potential opportunities are there. And then I think we're going to talk about our file import and email send automation. So we talked about importing a little bit with our ETL series the other week, but I think you can really pair that with email sends as well. That's a great use case that can be pretty helpful and build something that will allow you to send emails pretty easily from a corporate standpoint. So I think that's something that can be super valuable to the group. As always, if you have any ideas for content, if there's something out there that you want to learn about, please share with the group. I think Tim and I are super flexible. We are happy to kind of, dive into particular instances depending on what everybody else wants to talk about. So definitely don't be shy. Feel free to send in some ideas. So for our presentation today, we're going to be talking about elements of effective emails and email programs. How do we kind of make sure that our messages are resonating with our audience? We'll talk about deliverability. How do we make sure that our emails are getting through to the inbox? What are ISPs and other people looking out for in terms of sending practices, and how do we avoid those? How do we make sure that we're being good data stewards and making sure that we're respecting the consent of our subscribers? Some design best practices. I think there's a lot of different ways. I think all of us are email recipients, right? So we see a lot of different emails in our daily lives. What are some of those best practices that we can pick out across multiple? And then we'll get hands-on and we'll build an email and we'll kind of put some of those best practices into play. So for effective emails and email programs, there are some things that I think are kind of going to branch everybody. It doesn't really matter your industry, doesn't really matter your use case. There are some things that, in my opinion, you really just need to have. And the first is going to be consent of your subscribers. That's going to be the cornerstone really to your entire email program. We want to make sure that we are sending email to people who are interested in receiving our emails, especially in the case of our commercially classified sends. I think for transactional emails, maybe you're in a retail use case and you're sending a shipment notification, your product's on the way. That's great. I would expect everyone who makes a purchase to kind of expect that email and want that to come. But to understand, what that subscriber may want in the future from a commercial standpoint is really important to make sure that you're not sending them unwanted communications. I think the email providers are pretty clear that they're giving people tools to opt out of emails that they don't want to receive. They're kind of giving people control on how to both report spam, how to unsubscribe. And being reported as spam is one of the fastest way to get yourself into issues with deliverability, before we even get to our open versus click concerns. So if you're considering renting lists, I would definitely think long and hard about that, about where that data is coming from. I think you really want to make sure that you're kind of gaining subscribers in an organic way, making sure that you've got, maybe a double opt-in if possible, just to make sure that those are good subscribers who really want to receive your messages. And think about before you push send, especially in a commercial context. Sometimes you're going to get a request from the business side saying, hey, we need to lift sales of this product. Let's get an email out there. Let's get a couple more points on the board this week. And you want to be really cautious about that and make sure that you're asking that question up front. What are we really offering here of value? Sure, this is a great product, but is it a great product to everybody in our audience? Probably not. So some things just aren't going to be a fit. So you really want to think about, who are we targeting and why, and how can we make sure that this email is going to be something that they want to receive? Relevance is going to be a big way to do that. So, how are you profiling your customers? Maybe you've got loyalty tiers. Maybe you've got them segmented by interest in a retail use case. Maybe you've got, in a educational context, maybe this is something that is going to be, more relevant to seniors versus your incoming freshmen. So let's think about how we're kind of categorizing our subscribers and, what are the communications we want to send and what are some of those, ways that we can kind of categorize our folks in our emails to make sure that we're aligning our sends with what people want to receive. And then we would think about, what's the actual individual's involvement with this interaction as you're profiling them. I think one thing that happens to me every year, I like to shop. I like to give gifts. I think that's, one thing that I love to do, especially around the holidays. And, I buy slippers for my wife, and I don't want her to know about it. I want it to be a surprise. I'm one of those people who gets it done, before Thanksgiving, or I get anxious. So I end up buying these slippers. And when I start getting follow-up emails asking me to review the product, right? And I get emails following up, saying, am I interested in maybe women's clothing and things like that, all for a gift. So it's important to kind of think about, and that's a tough use case, right? Because how do you truly know who's on the other side of the screen? So those are kind of some of the things that you want to think about outside the box is, who is this subscriber? What are they interested? What's the engagement with that interaction that I'm going to be sending follow-up messages on? You should think about your voice. What's your brand voice, and how does that kind of align with your messages? I started my marketing cloud career in the legal services industry, and I came from the legal services industry. I was not an email marketer, right out of school. And I had that dreaded issue where you do the all subscriber send, right? I misconfigured something, I push go, and I hit our entire list of subscribers, whether they were active or not, with a test email saying that their hearing was scheduled. And you can only imagine the immediate response that we had in the contact center, in our inboxes, and of course me, I was very keyed up immediately. So I know I think it's a rite of passage, right? I think everybody does that at least once. Unfortunately, I did it with a pretty high stakes test. My reaction was to send another all subscribers email, letting them know, hey, that email was sent in error. If you have a hearing, make sure that you refer to your documentation. If you don't, we apologize. It was a test email that went out. And I put oops in the subject line, like, oops, our bad. Like, don't worry about it. Oops should not be in your vocabulary as a legal services firm. It was not something, we had very professional communications, and that was something that I just wanted to get out quick, and it really kind of compounded my mistake. So please think about your communications, think about your brand voice, and make sure that things are aligned. If you're very conservative and buttoned up, your email should probably reflect that. If you've got a fun brand that kind of plays along with language, by all means lean into that. So you really want to try to be true to who your organization is. And accessibility. I think this is a big thing that you will read about. I think it's one thing that everybody says you should do, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily do the best job of actually following through with it. So it's one of those things that, in my opinion, you should build good habits early as you're getting into emails, kind of build a system, make sure that you've got alt text, make sure that you've got your language settings, especially for folks who may be accessing your emails through screen readers. Think about your content hierarchy and how people are going to be going through your content in the event that they're not just reading your email on the screen and are using, accessibility tools to get into that content. But in Orlando, I see some ideas coming through in the chat. I love it. Awesome. All right, so for deliverability considerations, we'll talk about authentication real quick. So there are three big things that you're going to hear about when it comes to authentication. You've got SPF records, which are going to verify if the sending IP is authorized. DKIM, which is going to ensure that the message kind of hasn't been altered. That's kind of an encryption that's going to be available, privately on your side, and there's going to be a public record on the receiving side, so we can check to make sure that the DKIM aligns. And then DMARC, which is going to kind of tell your recipients what to do with something that fails authentication. You might quarantine them, you might accept them, you might reject them all. Ideally, you've got some technical resources who are going to be able to help you along with this. I think there are some great resources out there. I know I have really found Al Iverson's blog, Spam Resource. I'm not sure with folks out there who may be familiar with him or not, but he's got a great blog that kind of dives into the more technical things around authentication and deliverability. And as somebody who hasn't necessarily come from that background and isn't super well versed in the technical side of things, it's helped me really be able to have intelligent conversations with my IT resources when I go and ask or say, hey, I think there's a problem here, or are we aligned, and can we modify some of our records to make sure that we're prepared for upcoming changes, especially with the recent, Google and Yahoo DMARC changes that came through. Well, actually, it'd almost be a year at this point that those have kind of gone into place. So just be aware authentication is important. And, if you have technical resources you can lean on to help those, it's definitely a good thing to make sure that you are in alignment with. For your sender reputation, so this is, how are ISPs kind of viewing you? Are you a good sender within the ecosystem, or maybe are you viewed as potentially engaging in spammy activities? This could be potentially the volume of emails. If you send a low volume of emails, a couple hundred a week, and then all of a sudden you start sending hundreds of thousands, a million messages, that's going to raise some eyebrows for sure. I think this is the big thing that comes into play when you hear about a new IP address. If you're getting, started with your sending, you want to kind of do a warm up, right? Let's segment out our sends. Let's send to, all of our Gmail addresses in one journey. Let's send to all of our Yahoo Hotmails in another. And let's kind of slowly ramp up that sending activity over the course of a couple weeks, a couple months, to make sure that we're kind of easing into high volumes of sending, and that we're, ferreting out any potential deliverability issues we have with bad addresses, unknown emails, unknown recipients, things like that. Let's kind of get those out of the way in small blocks instead of sending and all of a sudden realizing that we've got, 1,000 bad addresses out there in our first send. You want to be thinking about engagement signals. So are people opening your emails? Are they clicking your emails? If you see a drop off in engagement, that can probably signal either that your content isn't relevant, you're sending it, but it's not really something that your audience is interested in receiving, or that maybe it's not landing in their inbox. I think a couple different mailbox providers out there have good tools, Google Postmaster tools. There are feedback loops where they can let you know, if spam is being reported or complaints are being registered against you. But a lot of them aren't going to tell you exactly what caused a message not to hit the inbox. So you want to monitor that engagement, because if it's dropping off, you may have a problem and your messages may not be landing in the inbox, and you may not otherwise be aware. So that can be a good warning sign that you've got a potential problem out there. And then list hygiene, we talked earlier a little bit about, renting email addresses. You really want to make sure that you are scrubbing folks who aren't engaging with your content. If they haven't opened an email in the past year and you're a retail sender, they're probably no longer interested. Maybe you can do a re-engagement campaign and offer them something to kind of get them back in the swing of things. But if this person's really just no longer a customer of yours, you want to think long and hard about continuing to send them emails versus getting them off your list and sending to more engaged subscribers. Excuse me. Send classifications we touched on briefly. So transactional versus commercial. Is this a product shipment notification? That'll be transactional. Really anything that you think about, the subscriber took an action and you're responding to that action. That's going to be more your transactional sends. Commercial will be that you're offering something, whether it is your company's services, whether it's a product. It's pretty cut and dry. There are some resources out there that kind of cover that. I think the FCC, within their CAN-SPAM Act website, has a good kind of outline about what they consider, excuse me, to be commercial versus transactional, if you need some guidance there. And then hard versus soft bounces. Bounces are going to happen. A hard bounce is going to be something that's not going to be resolved in the future. You sent to gmail.com instead of gmail.com. I think that's one I see all the time. Contacts that they put in the email address, they hit that N instead of the M, and that's going to bounce. Soft bounces are things like maybe the mailbox is full. It's full right now, but it may not be tomorrow. So in that case, Marketing Cloud specifically has some great tools out there to kind of manage your subscribers and kind of put them into a held status if it is a hard bounce from a trusted IP and they know that that's not going to be resolved. And then for soft bounces, they may put them into a held status after multiple repeated bounces over a certain period of time. So a couple more ideas in the chat for future content. I love it. Best practices. So I think this is hopefully going to be a little more relevant to what we're going to be building. So subject lines. Think about this is really the outside of your envelope, right? I know I get junk mail in my mailbox all the time. That envelope is going to tell me whether I'm even going to open it and look at what's inside or if it's just going to get ripped and tossed right in the recycling bin before I even get in the house. So think about your subject line. This is kind of similar. If the subject line is not going to resonate, some of your subscribers are just going to ignore that. Me personally, I know I have to mark everything as read. I can't stand the badge alerts on my mobile device in the event that I've got emails out there. My wife has 20,000 unread emails, and I think there are a lot of different behaviors in between. So subject lines are going to be a great way for those folks who aren't going to open those emails unless it's got something they want. Think about what you want to say about that content that's inside. You do want to make sure it aligns. You don't want to, bait and switch. That's something that is not viewed nicely by our email service providers. But think about that. And really that subject line is going to be crucial to making sure that somebody actually sees the offer that you've got inside. CTAs, I've had great luck with keeping these short, brief, exciting. Really, I think you want a nice large CTA in terms of an actual clickable area, especially for somebody who's going to be viewing these devices on a mobile phone versus on a desktop. Think about something like Learn More versus Learn More at our newest blog issue. It's going to be tough to fit all that text into a little CTA. Learn More is going to encourage them to kind of drive that action to your blog, to wherever you want that traffic to ultimately end up. Images, there's a couple things you want to think about there. Weight, you want to make sure that you're not, using these giant heavy images from a file size perspective. It's going to, limit your loading times and maybe not have the best user experience. And accessibility, understand that we may have vision impaired recipients who are not going to be viewing these images. We want to make sure that we have alt text and we're kind of coding our emails defensively so those people can still, access that content even if they can't see that visual image. Alt text isn't just the only thing we want to think about, though. Language concerns. It's important to make sure that you're kind of setting a language for your email. I think there are some examples out there. I think by Litmus, kind of explaining what happens when you don't necessarily set a language and you have a screen reader, try to interpret this content. It can be a very different experience for somebody whose screen reader is set to default in Portuguese versus English, of course. So make sure that you're kind of thinking about that and setting that language in your email templates. And then device differences. Emails are going to look very different on a desktop screen that's 24 inches wide versus your mobile phone that's going to be maybe 4 or 5 inches wide. So definitely think about that. When it comes to testing, there are some good rendering tools out there. Email on Acid, Litmus. There are others. You can test on your own old mobile devices. I know I've got a drawer full of devices I've had over the years, so that can be a good way to kind of just keep them around just for email testing. And then specifically test your subject lines for sure. I'm a big fan of A/B testing. See what resonates. Try it and see what sticks. Subject lines, CTA languages, images versus non-images, time of day of sends, day of week of sends. All those things are good candidates for testing and figuring out, what are your subscribers more likely to engage with. So from there, I figured we could build an email. We can go through and do some subject line copy, go through some alt text in our images, figure out where we want to place our CTA, and maybe do some A/B testing and configure some path optimizer and journey builder. I think we had some volunteers from last time, so I will stop sharing for now. And Tim, I'm not sure, do we have a volunteer on the call already ready to go? Or should we get somebody set
We
up?
do.
Awesome.
We do. We have Arun Gadi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, Tim. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so Arundhati, if you want to share your screen, we can start building an email and figuring out what we want to play around with.
Yeah, sure.
And Tim, I might lean on you a little bit just for where the best assets are. I know I was poking around on some of the hands-on content folders, and I think we've got some good stuff. But if you've got any suggestions, I think it's
Yeah, your call, Matt. I mean, we do have an email design system built, which you can leverage, or if you wanted to build them from scratch, it's your call how you want to proceed. So
yeah, if we've got Arundhati, what do you think? Do you want to try to build something from scratch, or do you want to try to leverage some pre-existing assets and just play around with organization?
Yeah, I would like to follow your guidance because it is my first session and I don't know how it goes.
Yeah, honestly, we kind of, not that we make it up as we go, but I think we're pretty open to different ideas. It's really, what folks want to learn and what they want to practice. So why don't we use the design system then? So it looks like, I'm going to guess that's going to be on the left-hand side of the EDS. Is that email design system, Tim?
This one?
I think if you go under email.
In the email studio?
You were in the right place, but if you see right under that EDS, there's an email. Yep. Actually, if you go, if you close that window or that that caret. So if you just change the caret to closed, just to the left there. Yep, and click there. Yeah, that should close
it is
it.
empty.
So if you click on that, sorry, if you just close that, there you go. And then right below it, there's email. There you go. Perfect. And then under hands-on, yep. And then
this one.
Email design system. Yes, thank you. I think that's our most recent. Yeah, if you open up the caret there. Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to build a new email, so the template, so if you click on the template folder in that, subfolder, that'll be the email design template once you create a new email. And I could walk you through starting that, and then Matt, if you want to take over with the modules and all that. Okay. So if you want to click on the upper right-hand corner. So yeah, first of all, let's go to, if you click on the emails folder, that'll be, or you know what, let's create a folder for our email build. So we know that this is the email design system. We're gonna refer to this when we're building our emails. And just to give a breakdown of what's set up here. So we've got the template folder, which has the template, which is we'll walk through that. That's the bare bones of how you can drop like header, footer, all of that. We'll leverage that in a second. We have modules that if you click on that modules folder, this has all the different pieces and parts of a basic email that we're going to be using once we build it. We have an image folder. We've got an emails folder. So the images would be if you wanted to drop in images. Your emails would be emails that you would be building and all of that. Development folder would be something if you're developing maybe new modules, or this could be something that you use in that section. And then scripts, typically we'll put scripts. The scripts folder is where you're looking for that AMScript logic to that you're using to pull in data from different sources and all of that. So yeah, fantastic. So if we scroll up a bit, I think we have a folder in the hands-on for the Boston Community Group. So if you scroll up a little bit, a little further up in this folder. So yeah, so you keep scrolling up a little bit. There you go. A little bit further up, there's that Boston Marketer Group. Perfect. Yep. And then this is a folder we'll use to create our first email. So if you click the create button in the upper right-hand corner. Yep. And then we're going to click on email message. Perfect. And then over on the left, under that select creation option, right to the right of that create email.
1 minute. My daughter is calling. Just 1 minute.
While we're waiting, Tim, I love getting a peek into other
I'm
people's.
sorry.
Oh, it's all
Yeah.
good. I was just saying, I love
Sorry.
getting a peek into other people's folder structures and how you think about approaching emails for sure. So I think that should give us some good ideas to talk about later on.
Yeah, and it's still evolving. So love to get your feedback, Matt, and everybody's as well. So if you click on template, yeah. Now, yep, and then if you go to saved, so right above where your mouse is, there's 4, so you see it says basic, empty, themed, and saved. If you go to saved, which is 2 more to the right, see you're on empty, but if you go to the right 2 more, there's a saved header a little further up. So you know where you had selected empty, you want to go back up. Right underneath create email, there's 4 tabs called basic, empty, themed, and saved. Yep, so if you click on saved, see where to the right of empty, there's themed and saved. There you go, perfect. And then what you can do, you'll see is this menu can be a little bit deceiving because you can find templates here, but you really want to navigate to that correct folder. So you're picking up the right template. So we're going to click on that folders icon at the top. You see that, right? Yep, there we go. Perfect. Yep. And then we're going to go to hands-on, right? Keep scrolling down. Yep, so we're hands-on. And then email design system, you're going to open. So if you can click back to that folder. Yeah. And then if you, let's see, you're under hands-on, and then if you scroll down, so if you open up the email design system, so yep, if you go back to the folders, yep, and then, yep, we're gonna wanna open that folder up. Yep, and then you wanna go to template. Remember we sort of looked at that template folder? Perfect. Right, and there's that one template, right? So let's select that template. Perfect, and then you can hit select. Okay, perfect. That should set you up with a template, Matt, if you want to do the drag and drop of the components from there. It'd be awesome.
Absolutely. All right, so I think the first thing that we've got to do is make sure that we come up with a name for this. So I think maybe we'll do just kind of like a welcome email. So I think something like that will be helpful. And then maybe also including that this is for the Boston Marketers Group. I know that's something that I like to do. I think Orlando in the chat just mentioned trying to mirror folder structure and naming conventions across data extensions, content builder, automation studio. So I think that's a good habit to get into. So maybe we include Boston Marketer up front, and then just something like a dash or an underscore welcome series. Awesome. Okay, I think we can move on to next. Going to be in the top right, yeah. And sometimes Marketing Cloud puts it top right, sometimes it's bottom right, depending where you are in the system. So it's always fun trying to guess. All right, so at this point, I think what we can do is we can bring in some content blocks from our existing assets that Tim had mentioned. Yep, so we'll go to content. Then we'll go back into folders, just like we did when we were looking for the email template to create from. Head on down to modules underneath our email design system. Let's go back into folders. I think what we're going to be looking for is modules. Awesome. So these should be some pre-existing content blocks that we'll be able to bring in. So I think we'll probably want a header. So maybe we'll do header with one logo. We can bring that into our header area. Awesome. I think we can hit done editing on the left. I think we'll definitely need a footer, so we'll need both of those. That might be an easy way to kind of just get things kicked off. So if you want to drag that into that footer block area.
Is this the one or?
I think that's a great one. Yeah, let's bring that on. Awesome. So we've got a logo. We've got a nice unsubscribe link there. Always good to see. If you're going to end up having a commercial email, you want to make sure that you have that in there. I think a couple other things we can call out here is if you look at the personalization string there, Tim's got all of those compliance related things that you need to have in there for a commercial send. The profile center URL, your physical address of the sender. You want to make sure that you have those in there, business name. So those are all system strings that are going to be able to be pulled in from Marketing Cloud. So definitely good to see those in the footer. I think we can hit done. And now in terms of the email, we're definitely going to want a greeting. So maybe we can bring in that greeting text box there. So maybe we want to do some plain text for that. It looks like that's going to be for some AMP script. So again, for those on the call who may not be familiar with it, AMP script is going to be Marketing Cloud's coding language, where what you're going to be able to do is kind of set variables, bring in other text. So for something like vGreeting, this might be something where you've got a dynamic, piece of content where you want maybe your gold subscribers to receive one greeting and maybe you want your silver subscribers to receive another. You can kind of set that programmatically up, in a code block for your email. And then here you'd be printing whichever one, relates back to that individual subscriber. For us, though, I think it may make sense just to put in a just kind of plain text greeting right now. So Arundhati, I don't know, maybe we want to drop into the HTML editor tab of this and just kind of edit our HTML down there on line 6. You got it. I'd clear out the %% equal sign as well. Those are going to be used for our AMP script, so we can probably just replace that entire block with whatever we want to say. Dear recipient, welcome to our email series, something like that. Okay.
Done.
Yeah, we can be done with that. I think the actual language, again, testing is super important. Figure out what your subscribers like, right? And, if they aren't engaging with the email, you can always come back and kind of adjust that language again. I think one other thing that we had talked about was our CTAs. So I'd love if we've got a CTA block somewhere in our modules folder there on the left. Let's drag one of those in, please. All right, so it looks like we've got some choices. That one is going to be left aligned, it looks like, and then we've got one that's centered as well. I know me personally, I'm a fan of centered CTAs, but again, I think it's something that you can test with. I think the important consideration that we kind of talked about is what's that recipient experience going to be. If you're on desktop, it's probably not a big experience jump between a left aligned button and something that's going to be maybe centered. If you're on your mobile device, I find personally that center aligned CTA is going to line up perfectly with my thumb. So that can be nice just to kind of hit real easy. So yeah, if you want to drag that in, Arundhati, that'd be great.
Oh, sorry.
No apology necessary. I think that's something that happens to everybody in Marketing Cloud. So don't worry about that. And that's one of the great things about the content builders, that you should be able to grab it and just drag it above the footer into that center body content block. No, there's no pressure. I think I do this all the time. It's a little finicky, so please, that's I don't know about everybody else on the call, but it's just the struggle. The bigger the email gets, the more I end up doing it. So do not worry about that. Awesome. So here we've got a call to action. And again, I think we can, maybe play around with language here. So, we've got a placeholder in here, but if you want to go to that HTML tab, maybe we could do something like learn more if this is going to be educational. Maybe we want something exciting, like if this is a welcome email, jump in if we're, a young, exciting brand. So you've got lots of different options here for language. You just want to think about your voice and how we can kind of align that back with it.
Shall I edit this?
That is up to you. If you want to replace it with something, like learn more, I think that'd be great. If you want to leave the placeholder, I think that's okay too. I think we're not going to be putting this out to our audience. So I think it's more just really kind of thinking about, what do we want to have there and can we practice that as we start sending things for real. So if you're good with that, we can just hit done editing. I think the last thing I'd love to do is to drop an image in, just so we can talk about how you want to check those, alt text and things like that. Awesome. Yeah, that image full width looks good. And I might suggest using this as like a hero image, maybe putting that above our greeting. Oops. Right. So there are a couple different ways to do this. Again, if you're familiar with the HTML, you can do it right in there. If not, we can also use the content editor here. So actually, if you don't mind, Arundhati, if you don't mind hitting block settings for me, please. Okay,
There
that's
are
going to
none.
allow us to kind of change our padding and our margin and things like that. Maybe we'll go over to that content tab. If we scroll down, no, nothing there. And maybe because this isn't an image block, I'm not seeing the WYSIWYG kind of options here. Do you mind hitting down on that little expansion caret just above the image? I just want to see what else is there in the expanded WYSIWYG tool. Just above there to the right. You're so close, that little down arrow. Let's try see if we can expand that menu. Just
This
just above where you are currently, that dark gray one.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're all good. So I think when we use the standard Marketing Cloud blocks, if you use an image block, it'll allow you to kind of put in where you want a link to go, for example, or it'll allow you to set the alt text right there in the content editor. I think this might be an HTML block, which is why we're not seeing that, which is totally fine. And it may be because we're already using existing content. I'm just having trouble thinking of it off the top of my head. So what we'll do is we'll go into that HTML editor tab up top. Okay, and as we scroll down, we're going to be looking, we've got our image source there. I want to see if we've got any alt text available.
This is image link, I think.
Yeah, so we've got our source there. It looks pretty good. All right, tell you what, why don't we hit done editing and let's bring in an image block rather than me trying to figure out where exactly I need to drop this in HTML on the fly and throwing errors. So knowing that we've only got 15 minutes left here. So if we want to go over to the blocks tab up to the top, please. And we're going to grab an image block and drag that in. Awesome. Okay, so let's go over to the browse section. We'll add an image. Oh, sorry, on the left. Yep, you've got it. So let's hit browse and we'll grab an image. And let's head back over to that email folder. I think in our design system folder, there was an images subfolder. Yep, scroll down just a little bit. Perfect. Let's grab images. Awesome. And let's see, do we have something that looks like it might be wide? Why don't we grab that Cervelo Kearney logo? Yeah, perfect. Awesome. All right, so on the left-hand side here, you can see that we can kind of play around with the dimensions of the email. We can make it responsive, scale to fit, and then we've got that alt text, alternative text if the image is not present. So I think it's gonna be a little bit further towards the top, just above where you were. Yeah, so alt text right there above image settings. So if we want to click in there, this is where we can provide a description of our image for folks who, may be visually impaired. Maybe they're accessing this through a screen reader. So definitely important to have this in. And I just put something describing the image that's in there. So in this case, I would put, a logo for the Cervelo Kearney company. Awesome. Okay, so I think the last thing that we need to do here is going to be our subject line. So we can come up to our email template and let's set a default subject line for the message. That way we know we've got something that will be in use. So I think because this is a welcome series email, I might suggest something like actually putting the welcome up in the subject line. Welcome new guest, welcome new shopper. It really depends on what your use case is. And something to kind of encourage them to open this email in there. So in this case, you would say, exclusive offers inside, or, we're thrilled to have you, kind of drive some excitement for them. So really, sky's the limit. Yeah, if that's what you want, that's perfect. Okay, so we can hit save. All right, so there are a couple different ways that you can do A/B testing within Marketing Cloud. I think the one that I've really liked is Path Optimizer. So I think that's something that I'd love just to jump into real quick, just to kind of take a look at configuring. I don't think we're going to send any emails today. We haven't gone through setting up an audience or anything like that. So we will, just go through configuring Path Optimizer and what that might look like. So I think you had an open tab. That was awesome. So yeah, if you want to click over to your new tab. And then we will hover over Content Builder. Yeah, and we'll go into Journey Builder, please. Awesome. So if you want to hit Create New Journey. All right, and we will set a name first. I think that's a good habit to get into. So if you don't mind actually heading up to where it says New Journey March 24th, we'll click that pencil. And let's put in Boston Marketers. Awesome. Yeah, and then I think whatever the naming convention from there that you had, I think Welcome Series makes a lot of sense. So I like to try to do this up front, especially in my first version, because if you forget some of that naming, updates as you version your journey, and some of it doesn't, so you may end up with like old historical entry event data extensions and things like that. That can just be a pain to try to troubleshoot, a year and a half down the road for things that are long running. So definitely, I like trying to name it right up front. Awesome. There you go. Yeah. So I think we're ready to create. Okay, so we can just drag in a data extension for our entry source. I don't think we'll configure one right now, but just to have it there. And then let's not select one right now. Let's X out, please. Thank you. So we'll head down to the canvas. Let's bring in our email activity that we just created. So you have to scroll down on the entry sources. Yep, awesome. Perfect. Awesome. There's that folder structure paying off. And you can see we've got the subject line that we chose is going to be the default subject line here. So we shouldn't need to adjust anything. So we can just hit done. All right. And then to A/B test, what I'd suggest we do is let's grab a path optimizer activity. Awesome. So let's drag our first email just to the right of that, please. Awesome. And then, so what our path optimizer is going to do is it's going to allow us to take our initial audience and kind of split them up. So we can say we want, 50% of our initial audience to get version A, and we'll ask 50% to get version B, and it will hold back a subset of your entire audience. And what this is going to do is kind of, you'll set a waiting period. Maybe you want to wait a couple hours, maybe you want to wait a couple days, and it will send these emails on a 50-50 split for that time period. And whichever version has the higher open rate or click rate, whatever engagement metric you select, it will then release the rest of these emails to that winning version. So it can be a really great way to kind of play around and try to, sort out different, content variations, whether that is going to be your subject line, your CTA, body copy, really whatever you want to try to test against. So in this case, let's try our subject line. So if you don't mind, let's go back to our email activity and let's drag in a version B under Path Optimizer. So do you know what? Let's leave this one as the default. So once this one loads, let's we'll exit out. Perfect. You can actually discard changes. I know that's one of the things that drives me crazy. We didn't change anything, but perfect. So let's grab a new email activity and we'll drag it into that bottom line. Perfect. Let's configure that activity. We're going to grab the same email. Awesome. And this time, let's check the message configuration. So if we want to hit edit. So our current subject line for this email by default is welcome new shopper. And let's create a new subject line just for this B version. So instead of welcome new shopper, let's write something like, thrilled you're here or happy to have you join us, something like that. And you'll get a little warning here telling you, but it's only changing it for this send. It's not changing the actual underlying email template. Yeah, perfect.
Happy to join.
I think that's great. And maybe we put an exclamation point, or maybe you want to play around with emojis. I know that's something that's popular, testing emojis versus non-emoji subject lines. Really, it's whatever you want it to be. So done is perfect. And we'll hit summary. And then we'll hit done. So now we've got the same email with just different subject lines. And we're using Path Optimizer to kind of run that test for us. And whichever one is more successful will end up being the one that gets used for the rest of the recipients for this journey. Can we click into Path Optimizer? I'm curious if we can configure it without having an entry event set. Yeah, let's see. Can we configure a winner evaluation? Awesome. So yeah, let's do email engagement. And I think right now, because we're testing a subject line, I think open rate will probably be the better choice. But maybe if you're testing CTAs, you want to use click rate instead. But I think open rate is great. And I think this is where you can say, how long do you want to monitor engagement before a winner is chosen? 1 day, 2 days. So think about, how many sends are you going to have and how long do you want your test to run before you kind of, pick a winner. But I think that's probably the things I was hoping to cover. So again, just a nice, great way. Arundhati, thank you so much for building out that email template. And now we've got, an email with different subject lines we can test to see what's going to be more effective for our subscribers. Any questions? Anything you were hoping to cover?
Man, that was amazing. If we have a few minutes, I wanted to share the logos to get people's thoughts as well. If we had a few minutes to share that.
Absolutely.
Amazing content.
Yeah, thank you so much for volunteering and building, and thank you for the suggestions in the chat. I love it. I love that we've got content ideas moving forward. So it's great. Again, anything y'all want to see, just let us know. So I'm excited for you to reveal the logos, Tim.
So we were trying to develop a logo for our community. And we wanted to involve you all in the development process. So here's where we are currently. We've got a couple of different iterations, a white background and a blue background, a couple of different iterations of the white background. But wanted to get people's thoughts on a favorite, which one they liked better.
I like the second one in the middle.
The middle one?
Yeah.
Middle one, okay. Why do you like the middle one?
I guess I just like I like the white background, and then I like the light blue highlight around it. I just feel like it helps kind of bring out the logo, I guess, and just I don't know, again, just I guess in a more, I don't want to say presentable way, but it just kind of like really brings it out, I guess.
Really good feedback. Thank you. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Got 2 votes for the middle one. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for your feedback. If you want to take a screen capture, third one, okay. Any reasons why you like the third one? Trying to gather feedback.
Yeah, team. So I can see that. So the first 2 are like it's in a circle. So the third one is that there is no, like you can assume that there is no boundaries around the design, right? So on the background color of each image, particularly it's showing its context.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that it doesn't need a border around, and so it gives it's a little bit more simpler. It's just the blue obviously frames that, which is kind of nice. Didn't know if we were trying to get the shade a little bit lighter, but I think it was at this point it's as light as it can go before it starts breaking up, because we kind of like the simplicity of the white. But I agree with you, it's simpler because it's a little bit more iconic. It doesn't need a border, where the white definitely needs a border because it just would go off to nowhere. So that's really good feedback.
Yeah.
Arundhati, you'd like the first one. So good, we got votes for all 3.
Yeah.
Awesome, that's good. Yeah, what were your thoughts, Arundhati, as far as this one over this one?
Yeah, well, let's we give a vote for a selection of the each of one and with that with numbers.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks everybody for the feedback. In general, though, does everyone sort of like the overall layout of the buildings, the bridge of Boston, and is it clear? Is it looking like it's something that resonates just in general for the concept?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for your feedback. We're going to drop this into LinkedIn as well to get other people's thoughts, and yeah, we'll look to finalize that in the next. And then when you can sort of see down here, we're working on, when you see in the community, we've got variations now for those every time you have a meeting, whether it's a hands-on meeting or an in-person meeting, we've got little icons or little images for each of those meetings that we're developing as well. And then we're going to be developing those social media LinkedIn slides as well. I know that they're really hokey. I sort of pulled those all together. So my apologies, they're pretty horrible. My wife Audrey is designing this, so she's going to take a look at that next because it's pretty bad what I've done. So more to come as far as you'll see more development. Then please share your feedback. Really appreciate the feedback. Back to you, Matt. Thank you.
No,
Thanks.
thank you. They look great. So
Thank
that's
you.
all I had for today's session. So unless there's anything else, I think we're good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, everyone. As always, thank you for the great discussion, the feedback, like Tim said, and for helping to volunteer and get some hands-on experience. So I think that was great. So look forward to seeing everybody hopefully next week.
Yep.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Bye.